They called me Grizz for a reason, but it was a whispered secret from a tiny girl that would truly test the hardened heart beneath my leather cut. The air in Mel's diner was thick with the smell of stale coffee and hot grease, a scent I'd come to associate with home. Our table, the big round one in the back corner, was a mess of empty plates, crumpled napkins, and half-full beer bottles. My club, the Serpent's Hand, had just finished a 3-day ride up the coast, and we were loud, hungry, and probably intimidating to the handful of other patrons. I'm Grizz. They call me that because I'm big, I've got a beard that hasn't seen a razor in a decade, and my temper can be, well, bearish. My leather cut, heavy with patches that told the story of my life, felt like a second skin. We were laughing. Tank was telling a story about a busted carburetor that nearly left him stranded in the desert, when I noticed them. A woman and a little girl, tucked away in a small booth by the window. The woman looked exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tired that sleep can't fix. She had a cup of coffee in front of her, but she wasn't drinking it. She was just staring into it, like the dark liquid held the answers to all her problems. The little girl, who couldn't have been more than 6, was meticulously pushing a single French fry around her plate with her fork, making little trails in a dollop of ketchup. They were quiet, so quiet they were almost invisible against the backdrop of our roaring laughter and the clatter of the kitchen. But I saw them. I saw the mom take a small bite of her burger, chew it slowly, and then, when she thought no one was looking, suddenly push the rest of the burger over to her daughter's plate. She tried to make it look casual, like she was just full, but I knew better. I'd seen that look before, in my own mother's eyes, a lifetime ago. The quiet desperation of a parent trying to shield their kid from a harsh reality. The sacrifice made in silence. The little girl looked up, her big brown eyes scanning the diner. They passed over the tired waitress, the cook visible through the order window, and then they landed on our table. They landed on me. I'm used to getting stares. Fear, disgust, sometimes a weird kind of fascination. But this was different. There was no fear in this little girl's eyes. Just curiosity. She watched me for a long moment, her head tilted. I gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. A flicker of a smile touched her lips before she looked back down at her plate. Her mom hadn't noticed the exchange. She was too lost in her own world of worry. She finally took a sip of her now cold coffee and flinched, then put on a brave face for her daughter, ruffling her hair. The little girl looked at her mom, then at the half-eaten burger, then back at our table. I saw a little spark of determination ignite in her eyes. She slid out of the booth before her mom could react. "Lily, honey, where are you going?" "Sit down," the mother whispered, a note of panic in her voice. But Lily was already on a mission. Her tiny pink sneakers scuffed softly against the grimy linoleum as she walked, not to the bathroom, not to the gumball machine by the door, but straight towards our table, straight towards me. The laughter at my table died down as my brothers noticed the tiny, determined figure approaching. Tank stopped mid-sentence. Preacher, our club president, raised an eyebrow. The whole diner seemed to go quiet. The only sound the hum of the old refrigerator and the sizzle of the grill. She didn't hesitate, didn't even break her stride, until she was standing right beside my chair. I'm 6'4" and built like a brick wall. This kid barely came up to my knee. She had to crane her neck all the way back to look up at me. Her face was serious, her brow furrowed with the gravity of her purpose. I leaned down slightly, resting my elbows on my knees. The jingle of the chains on my jeans seemed deafening in the silence. "What's up, little one?" I asked, my voice coming out as a low rumble that was probably more intimidating than I meant it to be. She didn't flinch. She took a tiny step closer, so close she was almost between my knees, and leaned in as if she were about to share the world's biggest secret. Her voice was so small, a fragile little whisper that cut through all the noise and straight into my soul. "My mom is hungry," she said. The words hung in the air, simple, devastating. The whole world narrowed to this tiny girl with her enormous, trusting eyes. I looked past her to the booth where her mother sat, frozen, her face pale with a mixture of horror and shame. My guys were silent, watching me, waiting to see what the big, bad biker was going to do. Tank finally broke the silence, his voice a confused grumble. "What did she say, Grizz?" I didn't answer Tank. I just looked down at the little girl, Lily. Her face was a mask of solemn expectation. She'd delivered her message, a desperate plea disguised as a simple fact, and now she was waiting. She had picked the biggest, scariest-looking man in the whole place and trusted him with her mom's secret. I felt a familiar ache in my chest, a ghost of a memory from my own childhood, watching my own mom skip meals so my sister and I could eat. This wasn't just about food. It was about dignity. I slowly straightened up and looked at Preacher, our club president. He had a way of reading a situation without a single word being spoken. His eyes met mine, and he gave a short, sharp nod. The decision was made. I looked around at the rest of my brothers. Tank's confusion had melted into a grim understanding. Snake, our road captain, was already pushing his chair back slightly. Every single one of them got it. This wasn't a club issue. This was a human one. I turned my attention back to the tiny messenger. "What's your name, little bird?" I asked, my voice much softer now. "Lily," she whispered, still looking right at me. "Well, Lily," I said, letting a small smile touch my lips. "It's our lucky day. See, my buddies and I, we have a problem. We ordered way too much food. There's no way we can eat it all. We're going to need some serious help." Her eyes widened slightly. Behind her, I saw her mother start to get up, her face flushed with embarrassment. She was about to come over and apologize, to snatch her daughter away and disappear. I had to move fast. I pushed my chair back, the heavy wood scraping against the floor, and stood up. I walked past Lily, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder as I went, a silent promise. I stopped at their booth. The mother flinched as my shadow fell over her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She was staring at a coffee stain on the table like it was the most interesting thing in the world. "Ma'am," I said quietly. She was probably expecting me to be angry, to tell her to control her kid. "My name's Grizz. That's my family over there." I gestured with my thumb back to the table of patched-up, bearded men who were now all watching us. "And we'd be honored if you and your daughter would join us. Like I told Lily, we were a little greedy when we ordered. Mel's gonna kick us out if we waste all this food." She finally looked up at me. Her eyes were full of tears she was fighting to hold back. Pride is a powerful, stubborn thing. I could see the "no, thank you" forming on her lips. It was the knee-jerk response of someone who's been kicked down too many times to accept a hand up. "Please," I added, my voice dropping lower, "don't embarrass me in front of my men. I already invited your daughter." I gave her a small, conspiratorial wink. That seemed to break through. A tiny, watery smile touched her lips. She looked over at Lily, who was now beaming, holding her hand out for her mom to come join her new friends. With a shaky sigh, the woman nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I'm Sarah." We pulled 2 more chairs up to the big round table. Mel, the owner and sole waitress, came over with a notepad, a knowing look on her face. She'd seen the whole thing unfold. Preacher took charge. "Mel, we're going to need 3 more cheeseburger platters deluxe, an extra large plate of fries for the table. And what kind of milkshake do you want, Lily?" Lily's eyes went as round as saucers. "Strawberry?" she squeaked. "A strawberry milkshake," Preacher confirmed with a grin. "And bring your mama a slice of that apple pie I saw, a la mode." He then looked at Sarah. "On the club's tab, of course." Sarah opened her mouth to protest, but Preacher just held up a hand. "No arguments. Tonight you're eating with the serpent's hand. You're our guest." For the next hour it was like the sun had come out inside that dreary diner. Lily was the queen of the table, sitting between me and Tank, telling us all about her first-grade teacher while demolishing her burger. Sarah, after some initial hesitation, slowly began to relax. She ate every last bite of her pie, and the exhausted, hunted look in her eyes started to fade, replaced by a flicker of warmth. She told us they were just passing through, a phrase that's always vague enough to mean everything and nothing at all. We were laughing at one of Tank's terrible jokes when the headlights of a car cut across the parking lot, sweeping through the diner's front windows. I didn't think anything of it until I saw Sarah. She froze mid-laugh, her fork clattering onto her plate. All the color drained from her face. Her eyes were wide, fixed on the beat-up sedan that had just pulled into a space right by the door. She snatched Lily's hand under the table, her knuckles white. It was a primal protective gesture. The air around our table went from warm and cheerful to ice-cold in a heartbeat. "Everything okay, Sarah?" I asked, my voice low. She didn't answer. She just stared at the car, trembling. The driver's side door creaked open. The bell above the diner door chimed as a man stepped inside, shaking rain from his jacket. He was thin, with greasy hair and a mean set to his mouth. His eyes scanned the room, and when they landed on Sarah and Lily, they narrowed into slits of pure venom. The man started walking towards our table. Each step was slow, deliberate, and full of menace. My brothers and I didn't need a signal. We instinctively shifted in our seats, our casual posture hardening into something solid and immovable. We formed a wall of leather and muscle around Sarah and Lily. The man, seemingly unimpressed, stopped a few feet from our table, his sneer deepening. "Sarah, I knew I'd find you here," he said, his voice dripping with greasy contempt. He completely ignored the rest of us. "Thought you could take my daughter and run, did you? Get your stuff. We're leaving." Lily whimpered and tried to hide behind me, burying her face in the side of my leather cut. Sarah's trembling intensified, but a spark of defiance lit her eyes. "She's not your daughter, Rick, and we're not going anywhere with you." "Oh, we're not," he said, taking another step forward. "I think you'll find you don't have a choice." That was when I'd had enough. I slowly pushed my chair back and stood up. And up, and up. Rick had to crane his neck to look at me, and for the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. I didn't say a word. I just looked down at him, letting the silence and my sheer size do the talking. The serpent's hand patch on my back, a coiled snake ready to strike, suddenly felt very appropriate. "This is a private conversation," Rick stammered, trying to regain his footing. Preacher spoke from his seat, his voice calm but with an edge like sharpened steel. "It became our conversation when you walked in here and threatened our guests." He took a slow sip of his beer. "And we don't like your tone." Rick's eyes darted around the table, from Tank's massive crossed arms to Snake's cold, unblinking stare. He was outnumbered and outsized in every conceivable way. His bravado began to crumble like a stale cracker. "She's my wife," he spat, a last-ditch effort at asserting authority. Sarah finally found her voice strong and clear. "I left you 2 weeks ago, Rick. I took Lily, and I'm not coming back. I have the restraining order in my purse to prove it." That was the final nail in his coffin. The mention of a restraining order changed everything. This wasn't a domestic dispute. This was a man harassing a woman he had no legal right to be near. I took a single, slow step towards him. He stumbled back, his eyes wide with genuine fear now. "I think you heard the lady," I rumbled. "It's time for you to leave. Now." He looked like he wanted to argue, but the collective glare of 8 bikers promised a world of pain if he did. He threw one last hateful look at Sarah, then turned and practically fled the diner, the bell above the door chiming his pathetic retreat. We watched his beat-up sedan peel out of the parking lot and disappear into the night. The tension in the diner broke. You could almost hear the collective sigh of relief. Mel came over and silently refilled our coffee cups. Sarah finally let go of the breath she'd been holding, and tears streamed down her face. But these weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief, of a dam of stress and terror finally breaking. Lily peeked out from behind my leg. "Is the bad man gone?" she whispered. "Yeah, little bird," I said, kneeling down to her level. "He's gone. He's not going to bother you or your mom again." We stayed for another hour, making sure Rick didn't circle back. Sarah, between shaky sips of coffee, told us the short version. An abusive husband, a daring escape in the middle of the night with nothing but a few dollars and the clothes on their backs. They'd been living out of their car, trying to get to her sister's house 3 states away. The meal at the diner was a splurge, a desperate attempt to feel normal for just one night, but she'd only had enough for 1 plate. When it was finally time to go, Preacher pulled Sarah aside. I saw him press a thick roll of cash into her hand. It was from the club's emergency fund, money we all chipped in for brothers in trouble. She tried to refuse, but he was insistent. "This isn't a handout," he told her gently. "It's a hand up. You get to your sisters. You get safe. That's all we ask." Outside in the cool night air, We walked them to their car. It was an old, dented station wagon that looked like it had seen better decades. I looked in the back and saw a makeshift bed of blankets and pillows. My heart ached. Before she got in, Lily ran up and threw her arms around my leg in a fierce hug. "Thank you, Mr. Grizzly Bear," she said into my jeans. I rested my hand on her head, my huge, calloused fingers looking comical in her soft hair. "You take care of your mom, you hear me, little bird?" She nodded seriously and then scrambled into the car. Sarah looked at me, her eyes shining with a gratitude so profound it left her speechless. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "Don't have to say anything," I said gruffly. "Just drive safe." We stood in the parking lot, the engines of our bikes rumbling as they warmed up, and watched her station wagon pull onto the highway until its taillights were just two faint red dots in the distance. We were the Serpent's Hand. To the outside world, we were big, scary outlaws. But that night, under the buzzing neon sign of a lonely roadside diner, we were just a family that had gotten a little bigger. And as I threw my leg over my Harley, I knew that the faint whisper of a little girl asking for help was a sound I'd carry with me for the rest of my days. It was a reminder that sometimes the toughest-looking people have the softest hearts, and that a little bit of kindness can be the most powerful weapon of all.